Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning, as I continue highlighting places in the 23rd District, which comprises nearly 24% of the land area of Texas, I'd like to talk about the city of Brackettville. With a population of a little over 1,500 people, it is a small town with a big history. Located as the county seat in Kinney County, Brackettville was once the drive-in movie capital of Texas. It was founded in 1852 as Las Moras, the name of a nearby spring and creek that it feeds. The town initially was a supply stop on the old San Antonio to El Paso road, and it was a supply for the U.S. Army's Fort Clark, which was also established in 1852. The town was first called Brackett after Oscar B. Brackett, the owner of the first dry goods store in the area, and it's a name that still sticks among locals. In 1873, when a post office opened in the town, the "ville" was added to Brackettville in order to differentiate it from another town. The town grew exponentially in the 19th century with the expansion of the garrison at Fort Clark during the Indian Wars. And during that time, the town's fortune was completely tied to Fort Clark. For many years, Fort Clark was the headquarters of the famous Buffalo Soldiers made up of African Americans. At that time, Brackettville had a large proportion of black Seminoles, people of mixed African American and Seminole ancestry who originated in Florida. The black Seminoles were recruited by the U.S. to act as scouts for the Buffalo Soldiers, and they settled with their families in Brackettville. During the slavery years, the black Seminoles began living in a settlement in northern Mexico in order to escape conditions in the U.S. Their language, the Afro-Seminole Creole, was developed in Florida, and impressively, even still today, African-American Seminole Creole is still spoken by some in Brackettville. After the Buffalo Soldiers moved out to Fort Clark and with the waning of the Indian Wars, Brackettville became a cavalry post. In 1914, the Seminole Negro Indian Scouts were finally disbanded, but these scouts had an amazing history of service. In fact, the Seminole Cemetery near Brackettville has the highest number of Congressional Medal of Honor winners resting there per capita than any other cemetery in the country. Virtually every cavalry unit in the U.S. Army was stationed or trained at Fort Clark at one time or another, and many famous soldiers, including John Pershing and George Patton, were there. Others just visited. Names like George Armstrong Custer or Phil Sheridan, who in Brackettville, near Brackettville, nearly lost his life to a war party of Comanches, and it was there that he made his famous statement, "If I owned Texas and hell, I'd rent out Texas and live in hell." In 1943, during the World War, the U.S. activated the 2nd Cavalry, and that was the last horse-mounted unit in the Army. And by 1944, even the 2nd Cavalry had been mechanized. So Fort Clark, so long the center of mounted cavalry, was targeted for closure. But before it closed, it was used as a German prisoner of war camp. Because of the families of the soldiers at the fort and the African-American veterans and the descendants of those who had settled in Brackettville during the war, the U.S. government funded the construction of a high school for black students. The school opened in 1944 so that the children of these veterans could be educated. At that time, Texas was still racially segregated. This high school is believed to have been the only federally built school of its kind between San Antonio and El Paso. After Fort Clark closed in '46, it had a variety of uses. It was converted to a resort or retirement center, and the historic district of Fort Clark is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And north of the town are the remains of Alamo Village, built in 1950 as the set for John Wayne's movie The Alamo. And scenes of the 1969 comedy Viva Max were also shot there. I invite everyone to visit the city of Brackettville to learn more about the cultures and traditions of the incredible 23rd District of Texas. And thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back the balance of my time.